So how did you get involved with Never Look Away, a 3-hour German film?
About an artist.
Yes.
Well, I had known Florian for a number of years because we had been on some various committees at the Academy, and he had won an Academy Award for his wonderful film. I'm just drawing a blank. Lives of Others, and he had met with Gerhard Richter, the painter, and had done a lot of interviews with him, and he was really fascinated by his life, and he then called me, and we met, and we sat down for about 4 hours, and he sort of told me this story. And it was before he had written the script, but I was really fascinated by, this character who had grown up in Dresden under the Nazis and, was born in 1932 and then survived, the bombing of Dresden. And then the Russians came in and took over. And, he'd grown up to become this artist and, worked under the communists and then managed to escape to the West. And it's just an extraordinary story. And I was just really fascinated by it. So I told him I really loved it and would want to work on it. And then it was a couple of years before it finally happened.
Did he have any ideas when he pitched to you of how it would look like, since he obviously has been working on this and thinking about it for a very long time?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about all sorts of different things. I mean, it's a film that kind of is about how evil kind of exists and is sort of ignored and just survives in terrible ways, and how, I mean, it's kind of, in the end, it's kind of art as a weapon, because what really is the discovery is the evil is discovered by the art that's created by this character, and who's based on Richter but is not Richter, so it is fictionalized, but a lot of what is in the movie is actually based on his life. And there's a character in it played by Sebastian Koch who's is a Nazi and just continues to survive and is undiscovered as a for what he's done. And it's just, it's one of these things where what you want to happen isn't necessarily what happens. You want everybody to be discovered, but in a way he does get discovered, and he gets discovered by the art that's created by this character.
Mm-hmm. And no one else knows.
And, I mean, the thing that's really interesting to me about art is where it comes from. And it's kind of, there's that sort of wonderful speech that Orson Welles gives in The Third Man, where he's talking about the 30 years under the Borgias, and there's, warfare and murder and bloodshed, and they produced Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and the Renaissance, and 500 years in Switzerland, with brotherly love and peace and harmony, and they create the Cuckoo Clock. I mean, art really, in a lot of ways, does come out of horror and evil, and this movie is kind of about that.
I love the way you lit the film, because it was very bright, and there was a glow through the entire movie, and even in the first section, which is Nazi Germany, and a lot of deplorable things are happening, but the images on screen are still bright, and I really like that juxtaposition. So how did you land on shooting it like that?
Well, the first scene is in this degenerate art exhibit, where Hitler had sort of deemed a lot of the really great art of the 20th century to be degenerate art and didn't want to have anything to do with it, and was much more interested in representational art. And it kind of sets the stage for where things go. I mean, it just like you don't want to expose evil, in an obvious way as evil. I mean, it sort of lurks underneath things in a way, and so it was sort of, you didn't want to give away, the evil really comes out of the characters and the way they behave, and that's the thing that was really, the kind of core of what the film was about.
Mm-hmm. And it's also like the power of the art is still like underneath everything.
Yeah, I mean, the character struggles throughout the whole film to sort of find out who he is as an artist, and I think, the thing that's always amazed me about when you create something is that you don't really feel like you have an ownership for it. You feel like it comes from somewhere hidden and from your subconscious, or somewhere where, you've been divined to produce something like that. And, as a consequence, you can actually appreciate things that you've done without letting your ego be involved, because you feel like, it's come from, some remarkable place that you don't really understand. And I think that's a lot of what that movie is about.
Mm-hmm. How did you go about shooting the climax of the movie when he has his breakthrough and he starts painting those photographs?
That was really complicated because, it involves all sorts of changes of light and wind. And
there's a lot of lights and shadows.
Yeah. No, it was really sort of... that was the part that really scared me when we were starting the movie, is how we were going to do that, because it's a long sequence, and to this day I still get goosebumps when I see it, the way Florian put it together with the music and everything else, and it's obviously the real core of the movie, but it's all about the wind blowing shutters and things being dark and projections, and it's but I think it was, on the page it worked, and the real terror was like, how do you pull that off, because the lighting was really, really difficult.
Was that all lit, or any natural light from the windows?
Well, it was, outside it was daylight, so yes, but the rest of it was lit, and inside, we had the projectors and we had all the other things that sort of would create the light when it suddenly became dark, and so it had a sort of mystery about it that, but when we finally did it and we got all the pieces, it took days to get, because it was, it took so many pieces of painting to tell that story. And of course, you're always worried about, some critic at some point after seeing the movie, it's like watching paint dry or something, because it is about painting, but it's about discovery and painting, and it's kind of the joy of the discovery of, who you are as an artist after, a long struggle with a lot of failed attempts. What is the secret to filming painting sequences? Because there's a lot of close-ups of brushstrokes and canvases in the movie, but it's still it's not boring. It's like you're watching this artist, work through. Well, I think the key is the actors, because it's really him discovering what it is that he's doing. So really, it's not about the painting. It's really about seeing in his eyes, the discovery of, of who he is and what he's going to create. Listen, the film is all in German. I don't speak any German. And I have to say that, the remarkable thing about doing a film in a language that you don't understand, it's like, like Charlotte just did a movie where it's all silent. So, and I'm sure she'll talk about it too, that, you observe actors, as a cinematographer, and you see things in their eyes, you see the way they behave. And, Florian was always sort of surprised when I would recognize that, a certain performance was the best performance. But actors give you all sorts of clues that have nothing to do with understanding language. It's the confidence in which they deliver something, or the insecurity, or whatever it is that is in sync with that particular part of the drama that's really, is telling you without words what is going on. And that was the thing. The performances were just so extraordinary in the film. So, really great actor. Was there any specific instance in this film that you felt bad, that you might want to change the way you shoot differently because of the performances? No, we, the film really, evolved because of the actions and the locations and everything else. It was one of these films that kind of fell into place in a sort of wonderful way because it was filmed in, we were based in Berlin. We shot in Dresden at the Art Academy there, and then we shot and also, in Dresden was, the city before it was, was bombed. And then, in Düsseldorf is the final, Art Academy where he, really kind of discovered himself. But it's really, it's also a love story. It's him being, infatuated with this girl and then, becoming a part of her family. And you should see the movie.
Well, your next film is completely different. Is The Lion King.
Yes.
Everyone and their mother saw the trailer last week.
For all the people who have not seen the film that I've just been talking about.
Everyone has seen the 90-second trailer last week. What can you share about that experience?
Well, you need a lot of time. It was basically, we went to Africa. We did a lot of filming there, but basically as reference. And then the film was actually filmed in, in a virtual space. Africa was created in the computers, and we would go into the computers, and then we would film it like a regular film inside the computer. And we would lay track in the savannah in Africa, and we would come out of it and we would have a monitor that would see what the camera would see, and we had gears, and we had fluid heads, and we had a dolly grip who would push a dolly, but when he was pushing the dolly in reality, it was pushing it in the African space that had been created by the art department. So it was pretty amazing. It was really, I was when I first met with Jon Favreau, who's really this wonderful director, and he'd done Jungle Book, which is kind of a primitive version of what we've just done on Lion King, and I was a little suspicious that I would get really tired of it after a couple of weeks, but there was so much invention that went on and so much excitement every day, when you would go into the space and see things, and you would constantly invent ways of shooting that were just you just sort of multiply. Like for instance, we had a Steadicam. And we could, in a 25-foot square space, you could have the Steadicam move around, but there were times when the animals meant more than 25 feet. So you could multiply how fast he would move, but then it was never quite right. So then you go, well, how can we do this? And then we go, well, can you guys in the computer hook up this 25-foot space to a dolly? And they go, yeah, we can do that. So we were dollying around, and then you end up with the Steadicam operator creating this ballet with the grip who's pushing the dolly so that, they'd, slow down. And you would literally do a whole choreography in order to have them follow the animals and have the flexibility of being on the Steadicam while you were moving this entire, platform, through the jungle or through the savannah or wherever we happen to be. And that's just a small example of what that was like. It goes on and on and on, but it turned out to be a really wonderful experience.
Well, everyone here is going to see it next year, so.
Yeah, I'm sure. But you should see
Never Look
Away.
Well, Caleb, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here a little bit.